it's really funny because people talk to me about mushrooms, for example, and mushrooms are widely known to be super, super healthy. But if you have mold in your system, they're super toxic to your body because mold is fungus. And so if you have it, then you're just accelerating, you know, what you have that you're in the mold in your system. So as mushrooms can help with cognitive issues, thinking clearer, and they have so many good properties to it. If you have that mold, it's destructive on your body. Tomatoes are known for heart health, right? And they're actually really high on certain vitamins, but they're high in lectins. And lectins are a property, like it's a type of protein, you want to call it, that these are nightshade vegetables like tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplant. They all grow during the nighttime.
Hello, Empower Nation. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. I am your host, Angela Duncan, speaker, best-selling author, serial entrepreneur, and we talk all things money and business. Today's episode is sponsored by freemoneytipsbook.com, freemoneytipsbook.com. Head over there and get your free ebook, 7 Unshakable Tips to get you started on your financial journey. Today's podcast, I am interviewing Lorna Flores of Little Chef Big Food. And we're going to talk about what is a functional doctor and why you should never normalize your symptoms. Hi, Lorna. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. And I just wanted to point out for those that are watching the podcast, we both have pink on, so very empowering color. I would love for you to just start off with your story, your journey. How did you get to, being who you are today with Little Chef Big Foods, and what got you to become a business owner?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I went to culinary school around 20 years ago. I gave up a little bit of my age for college. And I studied culinary arts, minored in nutrition. And, you learn the basic macros, micros, you learn how to cook. And then you do like an internship and you work for restaurants. And from that internship, I went into working the restaurant industry for about, I want to say a good 8-9 years. Until I had a complete health stop with my health, basically. So that really made me kind of shift perspectives and say, I thought I was doing well. I thought I knew how to cook. Like I thought I was being as healthy as possible. And really none of that was true, right? And it's funny because I have 3 kids, and between my first one and my second one, we had a miscarriage of a baby girl, and that triggered an autoimmune, but then that triggered tons of other health issues, and that was like the big halt. And that autoimmune was vitiligo. So like when you get like dyspigmentation of the skin, I don't know if you've heard of it. And when you get that, it spreads like wildfire. And so I didn't know that back then. And I began visiting all these sorts of doctors and like, what is this? Yeah. And like, why am I always bloated? And why is my hair falling out? And like, I had a huge like weight gain. And with that baby, it looked like I was only 4 months pregnant and I looked like 8 months pregnant. And I was like, well, this didn't happen in my first pregnancy. Right. And each doctor I would go to would be like, oh, it's normal. Sometimes it happens. Really normalizing all these symptoms. And it didn't sit with me. So that made me shift perspectives, began in doing my own research, began doing my own investigation. And I ended up working with a functional medicine doctor. And so for those of you, that are not familiar in like between functional and conventional, functional gets to the root cause of the issue. Conventional is basically like, here, take this, drink this. If you have like this heart issue, drink that pill. And then that might give you side effects, and then drink another one, and so on and so forth. And they don't get really to the root cause of why why we get sick. Like, is it the foods we're eating? Is it the environment? Is it like, what is it? Is it the air and the condition in your house? Like, is it the water you're drinking? None of that. So, as it has its benefits, it does has, like, I realized, I was like, okay, well, you kind of have to create your own balance and kind of investigate from both worlds. And that's what drove me to go back to school and study functional nutrition and kind of just merge my culinary arts with functional nutrition. Because for those people who have had any sort of chronic condition, a lot of things that they say, okay, well, now you can't have gluten, and now you can't have sugar, and now you have to be on paleo, and now you have to be on keto, and now you have to, and it's like, I just want to go back to eating a cheeseburger. That's when I realized that, one, I was able to reverse my autoimmune through food. Bless you.
Thank you.
And two, you have to create your own balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what's good for me isn't necessarily good for you. And we're all made differently. Our genes are different, our gene expressions are different, our DNA is different. And so that's really when it set in to me. And I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to merge. This is how I'm going to help people. Like, this is why I'm here. This is my purpose. If I could do it for myself, and, now I have the degree to do so, let me help others in discovering what's good for them, what's not. And how to help them go through all of this to be able to have their own new normal, right? And create their own balance and just, be itself. And so that's how Little Chef Big Food started. And, I've had the honor to help people with all chronic diseases, cancer, autoimmune. I've helped kids with ADHD. I've helped people on the spectrum. And you really realize that you are what you eat. And so, yeah, that's a bit in a nutshell, a little long nutshell, but yeah, that's what I do.
No, that's good. I love that. So you started off studying. You went to school for what you thought was, food and nutrition, and thinking that you were going to get the information that you wanted. And then something happened to you in your own health, which had to shift your way of thinking. And then you went back to being a student again. So, and then taking all of that information and now being able to help other people, that's incredible, and to have a business around that, that makes money, but also has an impact on people as well. So I love that. So talk a little bit more when you first started your business. Obviously, there's probably a lot of unknown costs, things that maybe you learned along the way. So if someone's thinking about starting, a similar company, what kind of advice would you give them on the starting part of it?
I love that you say you went back and you started studying. And now that's what I do still. Like, I'm actually, like, I don't stop studying, because to me, one of the key things to being successful in this business, and that I can say you should try yourself, is that wealth of knowledge, right? There's so many different scientific reports that come out. And so you want to be able to pass this on to your clients, pass these on to your patients. And so if you stop, right? Like, if you just learn if I would have just learned what I learned back in nutrition school, a couple of years ago, then I wouldn't be able to help others continuously. Do you get what I'm saying? It's continuing evolving. So one thing that I would say is invest in continuous learning, continuous education, because every person is different. So, you might come up to me and say, hey, Lorna, my hair's falling out, I'm bloated, and I have acne. Like, is this normal? And I can say, well, let's go and revisit your habits. But then another person can come and say something completely different. But unless you're not continuously learning, then how do you help? So I continuously invest in learning in different fields. So I take like an autoimmune course. I'll take, a course on different foods and what they do to us. Like, what does turmeric do to us? What do tomatoes do? So it's, constant learning.
Yeah, and that's an amazing tip. So I had the opportunity to write a book this year called Empower Your Money. And the very first tip in my book is to invest in yourself, like invest in your education, figure out what you're passionate and what you want to learn about, and then spend the time. There's lots of free resources that we can go out and do, podcasts and YouTube. But if you're going to really be a student, paying for that education also is very important too. So it's amazing that you continue your education so that you can continue to better serve your clients as well. So that's incredible. So talk a little bit to what do you do now when you meet with a client? How do you approach your new clients that are coming through with your business?
Yeah. So the first thing I do is something called an epigenetic test for the client. And that's an exam that is done with the follicle of the person's hair. So you get a couple of strands on the right quadrant and then the left quadrant. I take that to the lab. Obviously, there's, doctors that work there. They run the exams. And then when that exam is ready in a couple hours, they email it to me. And from that is our starting point with the client. So we start with an initial consultation at their home to assess, first to assess the results of their, the actual results, because it's 25 pages of just all of this information, like 98 biomarkers are pulled from that hair test that explain, how their levels of minerals, antioxidants, omegas, like how their immune system is, how their cardiovascular system, like what foods can help optimize their health because of, whatever ABC condition they have, or what foods they should also stay away from because of ABC condition they might have as well. It tells me if they have any heavy metals, parasites, mold in their system. So that's like really going very, very deep within that person's health. And so when we do that initial consultation with the results, we are able to create a plan for them with recipes, with a strategic plan. And in that home assessment, I also do like, say, what type of water do they use? What type of containers are they using? It's just like deep dive into their daily routine. How many times do they go to the bathroom? What time they wake up? What time they go to sleep? How many hours they work? All of that, so that I can give them the right tools for this to be an attainable plan, not just a diet.
Right.
And B, so that it's so custom that it works for them and they see instant results within a couple of days, and they begin to see what their health really should be looking like, how they should be feeling, how they should be sleeping, and all of that good stuff.
I didn't know that you can do a hair test. So if someone, like myself, that dyes their hair, you can still get an accurate reading of all that?
Yeah, because it's with the follicle. So when you pluck your eyebrow, like that little white hair comes out, that's what's pulling those biomarkers.
Oh, I'm gonna have to do this. I'm gonna hire you and come over to my house and do this. Because I do have a condition where my body is producing calcium in areas and tendons and joints where it shouldn't be really. So something is, we've never been able to get to the root cause of that. So that would be a very interesting test for me to find out from you, because it could be something super simple that I just don't know that's happening with my body. So I like how that deep dive, you go not only into their health, but you're looking at their surroundings too, because something in their surroundings could be causing something as well, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Is there any foods, like something that you can teach maybe more on a generic level, that certain foods help with certain things, or certain foods to avoid with certain things? Can you give us a couple tips that are more, I obviously know it's generic, it's not meant for medical advice, but what have you found?
So it's really funny because people talk to me about mushrooms, for example, and mushrooms are widely known to be super, super healthy. But if you have mold in your system, they're super toxic to your body, because mold is fungus. And so if you have it, then you're just accelerating, what you have that you're in the mold in your system. So as mushrooms can help with cognitive issues, thinking clearer, and they have so many good properties to it, if you have that mold, it's destructive on your body. Tomatoes are known for heart health, right? And they're actually really high on certain vitamins, but they're high in lectins. And lectins are a property, like it's a type of protein, you want to call it, that these are nightshade vegetables like tomatoes, cucumbers, eggplant. They all grow during the nighttime.
Right.
So they grow with the moon and not with the sun. And so the coating of the tomato, which is the skin and the seeds, have high amounts of lectins to protect it from like little animals eating it. But then when we consume too much of it, or if we have leaky gut, it produces more leaky gut. So it kind of produces like little holes within the mucus lining of our intestine. And when that happens, that stems chronic inflammation, and that stems to so many other diseases. So as tomatoes can be good for you, eggplant, cucumber, beans, chickpeas, especially for people who high vegetarian, diets, they probably have a leaky gut because they're having high amounts of lectins, but these foods are known to be good for us. So there's certain ways to cook them. Like if you go to Italy, they peel and deseed the tomatoes, and it's because of that. But here we don't.
We eat the whole thing.
We eat the whole thing, and then we go to Europe and they soak their beans, and that part of the lectins, and it also sprouts the beans so that the beans have a higher content of nutrition. And so without going too much in depth, like there's certain things you can do to avoid the high lectins if you have, if you feel like you eat. A lot of people tell me like, oh my God, but I just had hummus and I get super bloated and chickpeas are really good for you. And I'm like, well, you probably have a leaky gut. You're eating too much chickpeas, and chickpeas are high in lectin. And so you need to stay away from lectins for at least 30 days until your microbiome shifts, feed it good probiotics, and then begin to introduce to see if there's still some sort of reaction from your body. So like I said, everybody is different. There are good general rules. When I don't have the results of that person, when I haven't done an assessment, and I do I do a lot of speaking engagements about nutrition, one of the things I stick with as far as a good general rule is a good protein, a good veggie, and a good starch. And when I say that, I'm saying black rice versus white rice. That has like more antioxidants. I say salmon, or, wild caught salmon, or grass fed fish, or pasture raised chicken versus something fried. One is better than the other. But yeah, there's
just little shifts that they can do in their diet that can help, their body be at its optimal level too, and help their brain be at the optimal level because of the nutrients that we're putting into our body. And I like that you said, we're all different. So one person could be lacking something, another person could be not lacking that. And so the same fruit, vegetable, or meat could have a different reaction with that person. That's very interesting. So what all do you encompass when you're helping a client? So when you do that starting point and you do your testing, you guys go over the results, then how do you help them from there?
Yeah, so we do that in-house assessment, right? And then from there we build the plan. And in that plan, you're going to have recipes, you're going to have a 90-day template plan, and what foods you should avoid for 30 days, what foods you can begin incorporating after the 60 days, and then the 90 days. It's like a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And that's accompanied with the recipes and like a timeline. And then obviously, if we found that person has parasites, then a parasite protocol that's more homeopathic or more natural than when you do like parasite cleanses. It kind of cleans the bad and the good bacteria. So then you're stuck with other issues. So I'll give them certain things that won't do that. It will just cleanse it from parasites, but not all the good bacteria, right? For example, or if that person has molds, then it's like a mold program. So it really depends. It's a very customized plan, but it entails going to the supermarket with the person and really seeing. So when I go to your home, I'll open the cabinets and I'll say, okay, so I see you love chips, and that's great. But instead of this brands, when we go to the supermarket, I'm going to show you the alternative brands and explain to you how and why to debunk labels, right? So we go to the supermarket. We've created the plan for you, which is going to give you a breakdown of your meals. And then we go into cooking courses during the 90 days. We do once every month. And that's giving you the tools to be able to, for this to actually be attainable. So maybe somebody says, okay, Lauren, I can only spend 1 hour a week in the kitchen. How do I do this? I will show you a lot of different tips and tricks to set you up for the rest of the week so that you can make this lifestyle attainable, basically.
Yeah, so it's more of a change or a shift in the lifestyle than just, saying, here's a piece of paper, this is what you need to do, or here's what's wrong with you. So you're walking them through from like start to finish, all the way to make sure that they're making that shift in their lifestyle so that they can become the healthier version of themselves.
Correct. And really, I think that hand holding for the first 30 days, because it's really 90 days, but the first 30 days, people really realize that this wasn't as hard as I thought, because it could be overwhelming.
Yeah.
They don't want to hire me sometimes because they're like, I don't want to deal with this yet. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be in the kitchen. I don't want to go to a supermarket. And then when they do it, they're like, oh, okay, well, this is actually easier than what I was doing before. And I feel a lot better.
Yeah.
So, that hand holding, that Q&A that they have, that all of that, it helps. And then by 90 days, they're experts and they're just like, okay, I did it. I feel better. And now the feedback or every, comment that I hear after that is that my kids are on it too. My husband's on it and he's lost weight, and my in-laws come over and now they're wanting to come to Sprouts with them as well. And so now it's a shift for the entire family.
Yeah. And I'm already going to hire you. You've sold me on that because it's such a different approach. I've been through nutritionists before. I've been to your regular doctors, not the functional doctors. And you can't, when you get frustrated and you feel like you can't find a cure, you just live with it. You can just think like, this is how I'm going to live my life forever. So to think that there's now maybe a different way, I'm so excited. So when we're done with this podcast, we're going to talk more about that for sure. And then maybe we can do a follow-up episode to show everybody like this really works. So that would be fun too. So you're not actually cooking the foods or providing the foods. You're telling them how to do it. Okay. So that makes sense too.
Yeah. And there's people, right? I've had clients who are like, Lorna, I'm really not going to cook. And so maybe they have a helper at their home and I've trained them. And I've also partnered with a chef company that takes the chef to your home. So if you have the budget, and you don't want to, one of the things I love doing is showing them so they have the tools. But then once they have the tools, if they want to hire the chef from these companies, they work with my plans. I work side and side with them. I send them the recipes, I send them the plans, and then that person comes, cooks once, twice, two, however big their budget is, 1, 2, 3 times a week, and meal preps their food. But the idea or the concept of me doing this is so that I give you the tools on how to fish for your food. You know what I mean? Like they're tools that you will be able to take and use always in the future. And then if you have a family, go ahead and show that to them as well.
Yeah, good. Lots of good information. I love hearing all that and the story. And, the reason why you started to do what you do is so impactful because people understand now that you went through that same health issue. You went through an issue, you invested it in yourself, you've got the education, and now you're going to teach other people when they have a health issue or a health concern, you're going to teach them. So it's like you've been there, you understand what they're going through, and now you're teaching them. So I have a fun question for you. If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why?
Wow, I love that. Kind of stumped me. I think my superpower would be eating without gaining weight. That's not a real superpower, but but that would be a fun one. No, I honestly I don't know.
Maybe the ability to like touch someone and heal them without having them to go through this entire process.
That would be really cool. If I would have found that years back, sign me up. That would be really cool. But I think that once you go through the process and now I look back and I can see that I wouldn't be where I am now if I didn't actually go through all of that, right? Because you have to, I think it was Kobe Bryant that said it. It's like, it's not the end game. It's like, it's the journey, right? And I think that's part of it. You have to go through the journey to really get to the other side.
Yay, sounds good. All right, Lorna, if our audience wants to get in touch with you, learn more about how you can help them, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So I have my website. It's www.littlechefbigfood. So it's LIL. Everybody's like little, but that's a little apostrophe, LIL Chef Big Food. Instagram, Little Chef Big Food is the same, LIL Chef Big Food. And really, my contact information is all in there. My cell phone is all in there. So very accessible.
Yay. So if you were listening to this podcast and you have some health concerns, or maybe someone in your family is dealing with something that they maybe don't need to, we just need to do a little shift in what you're eating or your environment, get in touch with Lorna. She can help you out. And I will keep you guys updated on my journey because I'm definitely hiring you. And we'll talk more about that on a recap podcast. So Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into Empower Her Money podcast. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast, and leave a review wherever you are tuning in.